so I'm carrying on discussing a neurodiversity research conference. Now, as I was talking in my other video, Dr. Lisa Quad, I disagree with her views, but I respect her and I think she is a nice person. And also, by the way, when I did query and I did actually tell her how I disagreed, she did listen and she seemed to respect my opinion. Like she did, and she also did say that maybe in future they would call it a deficit if it's the best way of getting people support. So she seemed open to the idea that, you know, and she admitted that like people might disagree with what she was saying, and she did genuinely seem to listen to what I was saying. So I managed to get my view across, and I think also because she didn't say anything that, although I disagreed with what she was saying, she didn't make any sweeping claims or like judgments about people who disagreed with her. Now the next one did, and that's where I had the meltdown. The other one I just thought was really quite rude, if you ask me, and I really pissed me off. Like seriously pissed me off. Anyway. The next one I'm going to discuss now is someone called Dr. Mary Doherty. Again, you can Google her, by the way. I think, again, she's quite renowned in her field. She's an autistic, get this, okay, she's an autistic consultant anaesthetist. Okay, really high up. So she's basically what you would describe as pretty upper middle class, I would say. Not just an anaesthetist, but a consultant anaesthetist. Okay, she's a high up doctor. She's pretty solid. She's also the founder of Autistic Doctors International. Okay, so very, you know, she's very prestigious. She's got a very good job. Like even by neurotypical in inverted commas standards, that's a good job. Okay, and she's autistic herself. Again, I'm a bit skeptical. Like, can you really be autistic and do that? And have 2 kids? And she's got her fingers in so many different pies. It's unreal. Anyway, she doesn't have what I have, whatever she has. So, but yeah. So she was talking about neurodiversity affirmative research. She did say this does not discount disability, and it does not discount the need for support. And she also said it's not toxic positivity. The reason she said that is because when I was criticising Lisa, I mentioned toxic positivity, and I mentioned the problems with ignoring deficits and stuff. So I think that's why she went out of her way to kind of talk about how she wasn't discounting disability, although it became pretty clear that although she wasn't discounting disability, she was saying it was all social, and its implication that, you know, it's all society and we need to be all affirmative sort of thing. She works as a researcher and she's also been a participant. And she also said that neurodiversity, that the idea that the neurodiverse paradigm is only relevant to people who speak or who are so-called high-functioning is not true. And again, I disagree with her on that. It's not. I personally think I'll go even further. I say a neurodiversity paradigm is only applicable to people like her. It's not applicable to people like me. Yeah, of course, you can speak in it, and a neurodiversity paradigm is not necessarily applicable. Like I can speak, it's not applicable to me. She didn't seem to understand that, so that's why she really pissed me off. In fact, she was so hell-bent on saying this is the way we need to see things, and you are wrong, and that triggered a massive meltdown in me. She talked about how she was diagnosed autistic back in 2013. She's a parent of 2 kids who are also neurodivergent, and it was only after her kids were diagnosed that she got diagnosed, which is interesting. So she's obviously doing pretty well for herself before then, not to have even considered that she might have a difficulty. She talked about her second child being identified. I always use this word, identification, don't they, as opposed to diagnosis. Identified, her second child was identified autistic age 6, so quite young, and then she was diagnosed after that. She's an author, she's a peer mentor, so she's got fingers in loads of different pies. The one who was diagnosed age 6, her son, he's now 15, and she talked about how he's happy and confident, and that apparently the neurodiversity paradigm helped this first child. Apparently the neurodiversity paradigm helped him feel confident in himself. Apparently. Now her first child is also neurodivergent, but when she was little she didn't know that her child was neurodivergent, and she now has serious mental health difficulties as a consequence of not knowing. She implicated the core deficit paradigm as being responsible for her mental ill health. That seems rather far-fetched if you ask me. I would say that not getting support is a reason for her mental ill health, not because of the deficit paradigm. You know, what's wrong, this idea of make her normal and things like that. She thought that she was implying that was what was the reason behind her mental ill health. I just think that's rather far-fetched if you ask me, but anyway. She said the deficit paradigm was detrimental to her daughter. sending her deficiency messages. And that the core deficit model led to her poor mental health. Oh yeah, by the way, as I've already mentioned, I've already said, haven't I, she's an autism research consultant. She's a PhD candidate at London South Bank University. She's a consultant anaesthetist in Ireland, so she's Irish. And she's also a clinical research fellow at Brighton and Sussex Medical School. Oh yeah, she's also said she's very against research funding into causes because she thinks they aim to fix autism. So she's against genetic research, and she says it causes group harm, or something. I didn't quite get that. Oh yeah, she talks about the genomics revolution, and she says there's an existential threat to our community. Very tribal language. Our community. Well, clearly I'm not a member, am I? I'm not a member. What community? Our community. I personally want there to be medical research because I want to know what caused the autism. It's not going to fix me, but it's helpful to know the reasons. It kind of makes you understand yourself more, and also it may well help them to develop therapies down the line. It might not help me right now, but I think they should do research into the causes. And in and of itself, that can reduce stigma, because once people understand the physicality of autism, that will increasingly bring the invisible condition. It will make it more tangible, the invisible condition. It will make the invisible condition more concrete. And people, as a rule, tend to respond better to things that are made more concrete. It's partly because autism is so invisible that there's so much stigma. And I think the more we show that mental illnesses autism isn't a mental illness, obviously, but mental illnesses are neurodevelopmental conditions, which are all brain-based. The more we can show that physicality, I just think that will reduce stigma, personally, and I do want to know. So, this whole idea that our community are against it, it's an existential threat to our community, is just so disingenuous. It's unreal. She talks about opening doors to prenatal testing. Now, my views. I'm not against prenatal testing. They already do that for Down syndrome, for crying out loud, and some people get tetchy on that, personally. But let's face it, if you aren't able to have a disabled child, why would you want to bring suffering in? People should have a choice, because not all parents are able or want to have a disabled child, and I think they should be allowed to have that choice, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I just think, anyway, that'll take another video, a debate about prenatal testing. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with it, but, and then, she also talked about how autistic doctors could potentially fail to diagnose autism because they might see themselves as having the same issues, and they might say, oh, that sounds like me, and as I'm not autistic, that person can't be, because so basically an autistic doctor who's autistic but doesn't realise it might fail to diagnose accurately, as they see themselves as having the same issues and they see those issues as normal, sort of thing. Again, I'm a little bit like, I don't quite know what to make about that, because for starters, if you're an autistic doctor, you've got to be really, really able anyway, but that'll take another video. And surely if you're having more problems, you would have already that'll take another video. Anyway, but I won't go into that. She said that the idea that neurodiversity only refers to a small section of autistic and the term subgroup is wrong, but I've already said I disagree with that idea. She talks about deficit framing results stigma stereotypes. Again, I think it's the absolute opposite, if you ask me. It actually results in positive stereotypes. They're doing the complete opposite. It's neuroaffirmativity. It's creating more stigma. And the one thing that made me go into complete meltdown, by the way, was when she talked about, was when she implied that that autistics have mental health, that deficit model is a direct result, the deficit model leads autistic people to have mental health problems, and that suicidality is caused by the deficit model, and that basically if they were neuroaffirmative, they wouldn't have mental health problems. That's like a point where I went into complete meltdown. Okay, so I'm going to move over. I need to do another video on this now, so video 3, because I want to talk about what happened there, where I lost my cool because of her incredibly toxic lecture about how the deficit model makes autistics mentally unwell, and how basically just actually crazy that is, and how it made me feel very angry. Okay, so moving on to video number 3 now.